And the next question you might ask is, how do we get from where we are today to this next stage in our relations? Again, I have to address this from the side of the intent and efforts of the United States. We operate from the fundamental assumption that the people and governments of both the United States and Zimbabwe want to see a stable and prosperous Zimbabwe. To achieve that goal, we focus on several major areas: developing and bolstering democratic institutions, fostering economic growth and trade, supporting the provision of social services, and providing humanitarian assistance to vulnerable populations. In pursuing these efforts, we'll continue to operate exclusively in line with the law and constitution of Zimbabwe as established through the will of the Zimbabwean people. Since these notions are still a bit vague, probably, let me lay out some examples. I mentioned that we're working to develop and to offer capacity to democratic institutions. As with many countries, the U.S. approach to development is informed significantly by our own experience of best practices that have worked in our own country. Over our 235 years of experience, we've seen that stability and good governance comes through a transparent and accountable political system with checks and balances on power and robust oversight through civil society and the media. We've learned that when the strict differentiation between the political party, the government, and the institutions of the state are breached, the public's interest begins taking a back seat to vested interests of those in positions of power. We've learned this through often very difficult trial and error in devising remedies to the abuses of the systems that have been attempted over the years. These same protections, checks and balances, a watchdog role by the non-governmental sector, and the differentiation between party, government, and state are also provided for under Zimbabwe's laws and constitution. With fewer years of experience as an independent state, more limited resources, and 2 decades of Zimbabwe's post-independence history as a de facto one-party state, some democratic institutions in Zimbabwe have not thoroughly matured or perhaps even been established yet. A major thrust of our efforts in and with Zimbabwe is to support these foundation institutions: an activist parliament, independent courts, a responsible professional media, a professional electoral commission, a non-political military, transparent civil society organizations, a nonpartisan police force, skilled regulatory bodies, and the like. These are institutions that Zimbabweans and the Zimbabwean government have established. They were established for a reason. We're not interested in imposing our way on any of these groups, and we fully understand that Zimbabwe's democracy will have its own character and will not be a duplicate of any other specific model from the US, from Europe, or anywhere else in the world. But still, these Zimbabwean institutions are only as good as they can fulfill their mandates. So the role of our partnership is to provide resources, expertise, recommendations, and public goodwill to embolden and enable these institutions to play their proper roles. I want to be clear here. Strong institutions make taking actions more difficult and lengthier. It's been said that bureaucracies were created to keep things from happening. But while this is often frustrating, our experience has been that this frustration is more than a reasonable cost to incur in order to experience the benefit that these institutions bring in preventing any one group from taking advantage of the broader society. President Obama would almost certainly find it easier today to simply lift the U.S. debt ceiling rather than have to negotiate a compromise with an uncompromising Congress. Richard Nixon, when he was president, certainly wasn't a fan of the free press when the Washington Post broke the story of Watergate. In the southern United States, when I was growing up, whites certainly weren't impressed with the Supreme Court when it ruled that segregation on the basis of race was unconstitutional. And Donald Rumsfeld, my former boss when I worked at the Department of Defense, certainly didn't appreciate civil society's insistence on establishing an investigation into events at Abu Ghraib. But strong democratic institutions made life difficult for these people. But the views of President Obama, President Nixon, or former Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, or Southern whites were not the only views that mattered. And history has shown time and time again that by having these institutions in place has made our country better off. Similarly, there are and will continue to be those in Zimbabwe who are less than thrilled with the extra scrutiny that their actions face as the country's institutions become more robust. Make no bones about it, it will be inconvenient. And our support to these institutions, though, is not meant or designed to specifically inconvenience or penalize any individuals. Instead, the support is designed to serve the country and its citizens more broadly through the laws and institutions that Zimbabweans have already put in place.